Here we are. Good morning.
Awesome. Morning.
Welcome to our latest Talent Matters webinar, brought to you by Wave and me, Dave Jenkins. We've got a really good webinar today. We're really looking forward to this one, and thanks already for the feedback in the comments on the right hand side. Piling the pressure on today. Last week's session was fantastic. Thank you, Ollie. And we're piling that pressure on today. But I think today's session is going to be a really, really good one. Marketing through 2020, and I don't think there's ever been a year of marketing, or there's never been a year like this at all. And marketing has played a huge part to this year. Obviously, we know with COVID-19, it's turned everything completely upside down, and companies have reacted in different ways to that. Some of them have kind of battened down the hatches and just sort of gone into hibernation. Others have maintained a steady status quo throughout, and others have kind of come out all guns blazing. And the way in which you do that, or the decisions that you make in which route to go down, have been hotly debated. I'm sure they have been at Wave. I'm sure they've been at most businesses up and down the land. In actual fact, probably the world. So that's one of the things we're going to discuss today. Your brand, your communication, your marketing. We're going to kind of get stuck into it. Today, our guest is Richard from Austin Fraser, head of global marketing, I think, to be precise. Austin Fraser, if you don't know, hugely successful recruitment business, originated, I think, here in Reading, but has now got nine offices around the world. There's one comment on your website actually that I noticed. Obsessed with doing the right thing, which I love, by the way. And I think you've launched a new website, so we can have a chat about that as well. And I did notice, you guys feature a lot in the Times fast track. Really done really well there. I think the latest one is international. So we are talking to a business that has been very successful in the past. So it'd be really good to get your views on that today. So thank you, Richard, for joining us. Really glad to have you on. Really looking forward to seeing what you guys have done. I'm just loading that pressure even more now, aren't I? So I said before, it's a fairly informal chat, but now I'm just like switching it up. But no, it'll be great. But Richard, thank you for coming on. How are you doing? Tell us about, if people don't know you, which I'm sure they do. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, how am I doing? Very busy, but tell me someone who works in recruitment marketing who isn't busy, and I'll tell you they don't work in marketing. It's crazy times right now, and you're completely right. I think the impact on marketing over the last 6 months, it doesn't matter what business you've been in, has been tremendous. Yeah, tremendously challenging, but fun at the same time. I think your introduction was sort of spot on. So I'm head of global marketing at Austin Fraser. Don't forget Austin Vita. So we're a recruitment company that originated in Reading and have grown to 3 countries, 9 offices. We now cover technology through Austin Fraser, and then life science through Austin Vita, which was a sort of a brand that I created, having just started at the company. That was a nice curveball. I sort of had done a real analysis of where Austin Fraser are at, and about 2 weeks in, it was, we need another brand, and we need it quick. So that was all fun and games. But so that's where we're at. I run marketing for all of our offices, the entire company.
And how many people across the 2 businesses now, or 2 brands now?
Well, I mean, I think like most companies, there's been a lot of change. We, going into the pandemic, were around 200 people. We lost a few, but we now are on quite an aggressive hiring curve. So we had, only a few months back now, 50 plus vacancies for new consultants. Our fabulous talent team have filled a large chunk of those. We've still got a few outstanding, but we're hovering around 200-ish, just over people.
That's brilliant. I mean, and it was 2007, I think you guys had started, or around that time. I mean, that's a hugely hugely successful, hugely fast journey as well, to get into those nine offices. And I'm right in thinking that is that's UK, Germany, and America.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're sort of, you'll find us in most of the tech hubs. A clever research was done as to where and when we open our offices, and so we haven't just gone for the headline cities. We've sort of really looked at where tech's growing and tried to be a major part of that. So yeah.
So it'd be interesting to also find out what you've done from a global point of view around this marketing. But let's kind of get stuck into this. You sort of touched on it a little bit, but and it's almost becoming a bit of a war tale now. But let's go back to sort of March of this year. Things were flying for most businesses, and then obviously it all changed. Give us a bit of a recap. What was the impact? The initial impact on the business. Right at the start.
I mean, as you've quite rightly pointed out, Austin Fraser has always moved at pace. We've scaled, we're brave, and going into the year, we had some fantastic plans. I mean, we were really looking to push things on again this year. So yes, when COVID hit, and it hit us all quite quickly, it's safe to say it sort of sent shockwaves through the company. I guess when I've been reflecting on this over the last couple of weeks, and dare I say, I don't know if it's even okay to say this, but I think this situation has actually been quite good for us. And I don't want to belittle what is a global pandemic. It's serious stuff, but the flip side, it's really given us a chance to reflect and to look at the way we're doing things, and the way in which we've grown, and in some areas the classic recruitment bloat that we've experienced. And we've used it as an opportunity to sort of tighten up. I think it was a real lesson for the business not to be so wasteful. Most businesses, as they're growing quick, you pick up new products, new areas of spend, and no questions are really asked because things are always climbing. Of course, when it's all
about the growth, right?
Of course it is. And if it makes sense, you do it. And so we very, very quickly went through an exercise and realized that we were spending an awful lot of money in areas that we just didn't need to. And so we went through a really exciting process, I think, of cutting, of really streamlining process, of streamlining spend, the platforms we used, and we saved an awful lot of money and found ourselves finding new and exciting ways to sort of go about our work. So I would say that was a positive. I think you sort of pointed it out that we've on our website, our mission, our values, our culture, it's so important to us. And so I think we established early on that we're in this together. And we have a fantastic CEO in Pete, who was really, really clear with this. If we all suffer a little, then we won't have to suffer a lot. And so we looked at ways as a whole organization that we could. We looked at our pay. We all took a slight pay cut, but the fact that we all took it meant that there weren't many casualties. We furloughed a couple out of necessity, but we really didn't want to impact people's lives because our people are first and foremost. And so I think that sort of echoes the culture that we've got. If I think about business, so we've got a high quality of consultant. The bar's pretty high here, and we've got some really strong client relationships. So I heard some doom and gloom, certainly within the recruitment space. For us, we didn't really see it. Of course, things dropped off, and we had to tighten in some areas, but ultimately we were still generating business. The technology space, the life science space, there was still a lot of activity there. We just had to flex the way we were doing things. So yeah, on the whole, it was certainly challenging, but we've really seen some positives out the back of it.
I think there's been a sort of a bit of a familiar theme running throughout this, in terms of and I've looked at it and written and spoken a bit about it, is just the brand during this time is so important, and not the brand from a branding point of view or from a marketing point of view, but I think it comes down to your culture, your DNA, your purpose. I think that's really it's gives you something to get stuck behind or support. And then the other thing is the whole reviewing the business and this Tom's put in the channel there, lean up, and actually I think that's that's something else as well, because you do end up going through buying subscriptions to this or that or whatever, and processes get a bit bloated in the way you do it, because that's the way we've always done it, and it's really we haven't got the time to relook at it. But I suppose it did give us the time when everything kind of shut down. The only thing you could do was sort of almost look inward a little bit.
We had no choice, we had no choice. I think when you're looking at cutting costs, the last area you look is your people.
Yeah.
If you're a good company with a good culture anyway. And so, yeah, we looked at offices. We had a huge travel budget, people flying all over the world between cities. We started asking the question, why? Why do we really need to fly over there for that particular meeting? Can things be done virtually? And of course, we had no choice. And so we started, making sure that our tech team, I imagine they had a tough 2 or 3 weeks. But, it's decisions that were previously made actually that set us up amazingly well. So a decision was made prior to me joining. I've been here roughly 2 years now, and it just goes to show the impact of good decisions. They made the decision that we were going to free people up from working at a desk and provide everyone with laptops. So, previously everyone had an iMac. And so you would come into work, you had your desk, that's where you work from. We needed more flexibility in our business. We were growing, we needed to be in more places. So we made the decision, cut that, provide everyone with laptops, allow them to be agile, allow them to sort of start to work from, where they'll thrive. And so having done that and been through a huge tech project to implement that and make that work, setting up the processes for new starters and the complexity that comes with that, a pandemic hits and suddenly we're not the ones scrambling for tech. We can all work from home at the click of a finger because we have been doing it anyway. So it could have been worse. And I really felt at the time for some of the companies that were tied to offices that didn't have the tech in place, it was a really, really strong decision.
Yeah, no, that's it's nice when some of those things, like they you see the ROI pretty quickly. But
yeah, sure.
But let's talk about this specific marketing strategy then. I mean, Austin Fraser, Austin Vita, both are very vocal, across social channels. You've made use of videos as well. During the start of this, could you give us an insight as to some of those conversations around, okay, this has happened, we know, what are we doing marketing wise now? What do we do? How do we approach this? Do we go large? Do we go quiet? Do we kind of, keep the status quo? Do we, what were those conversations about the messaging and the activity that was going to happen?
I mean, I can tell you what the first conversation was. It sort of went shit. No, we it's safe to say that it rocked our world. So if I sort of explain where we were at as a marketing department anyway, so you see on our website now, an awful lot of hard work's gone into that. We did that in-house predominantly. So we designed it, wrote the content for it, did all of the rebrand myself with a fairly small team. So we were, I would say, probably halfway through that website project when it kicked off. And we partnered with Volcanic, as most people see from our website. And yeah, it was scary stuff, because we had already taken on a big project internally and were sort of flying through that. Suddenly my team were a person down, and we're halfway through a massive project, and we have deadlines. We have to get this over the line no matter what. But we've also we're having to reflect back on the current situation, and we're really having to step up. I think the conversation, the decision was quite clear for us, really. It was that we needed to enable our sales consultants. So our consultants had a huge shift in their approach. Previously, I think they could afford to be quite reactive at times, sort of very phone-based. What had happened during this pandemic is that the world had started to really, really look online. So LinkedIn became much, much more important, standing out, developing a personal brand. Really, really important. If you don't stand out, if you aren't saying the right things, you're not going to be noticed, because it's what everyone's doing right now. And so I think it's safe to say that whilst recruitment consultants are already great at building a personal brand, when it comes to the marketing elements of that, maybe not so much so. And so we made a decision that there were sort of two rules for us that we were going to focus on for the foreseeable future. The first, as you've quite rightly put, is one of our values, obsessed about doing the right thing. So for us, it was really easy: put candidates and clients first, help them where possible. So that was a real key driver for us. And when I say help them, I don't necessarily mean recruitment. I guess we'll come on to some of the things that we did. But, one example of how we were helping was we created assets for every single consultant that they could post on LinkedIn and say, who wants a coffee break? And so they were offering out 15 minutes to 30 minutes of their time to anyone who needed it, just to chat. And it didn't have to be about their CV. It didn't have to be about whether they were looking for a job or whether there's someone wanting to build out their team. It was, hey, I've got 30 minutes. Yeah, it's tough times right now. If you haven't got a job, if you've just been made redundant, if you're worrying what you're going to do next, why don't you jump on a call with me and chat? Sounds like quite a small thing to do. My God, did it go crazy. We had consultants doing it across the globe, and they were having incredible chats, and they were reporting back about some of the connections that they've made, and we were getting feedback from people that were just blown away by the fact that our consultants were prepared to just spend time, go out of their day to have a chat with someone.
This isn't a time to sell, is it?
No.
The number one rule that came out of this very quickly was, do not sell.
No.
And you could see some of the wrath that companies were getting when they were doing things like coronavirus special offers and whatever it was, and it was just It became very clear very quickly, this is not the time to go sell, which is, and let's be honest about it. Recruitment is a sales driven environment. So that's quite a bit, that's no small thing that you've done, that you've done there in terms of shifting that. How was that? How were the consultants with that? Because they're, a lot of these, they're natural born salespeople. So to say, look, don't worry about this, just have a chat with them. Did that go down well?
It sounds like a corny thing to say, but our culture is geared up to do that anyway. That wasn't even that was like a 5-minute discussion to do that. And as soon as we sent it out, we had consultants thanking us for providing them with assets to do it. That they were doing it anyway. We live and die by the values that we set. We're one of those companies that if we've written it on our website, it's not because we want you to think it sounds good. It's because we've done 6 months worth of internal work to establish that this is actually how these guys operate and how they feel. So it became second nature. So that was one example. And actually, if I take that a little bit further, so at Austin Fraser, we're hugely focused on building communities and delivering back to the communities that we sort of serve. So if we're in Austin, it doesn't just mean we do recruitment in Austin. It means that we will always look for ways that we can make Austin a better place. So previously, we were running community events, Leaders in Tech being one, for example, bringing the right tech thought leaders into the room, talking about challenges and helping them to sort of push things forward within their city. We started putting people in the room just to sort of chat through challenges that they were currently facing. So, of course, we were sort of quite early on, we were talking about things like remote onboarding. We were talking about things like hiring remotely. All of these subjects that suddenly became sort of the norm. We were holding webinars and putting the best thought leaders in the room and inviting as many people as possible to attend these events, just because we felt like it was the right thing to do. Our theory with all of this, and it doesn't just apply to the pandemic, it applies to the way we do business, is that if we throw enough out there, if we do enough good, then ultimately it will be great for our brand anyway, and people will come back. And I have solid case studies, client wins, people that we've placed over the last couple of months. And the reason that we've placed them is because the clients come back to us and said, you guys were the only people that were actually talking to me through this pandemic. I didn't have anything. I wasn't hiring, but you were still talking to me. You were still sending me things. You were still, caring about my well-being, et cetera, et cetera. And this was happening time and time again. So yeah, I would say that was the first rule. The second rule, from a marketing perspective, was enable our consultants, help them stand out. So as I sort of alluded to before, they've all got personal brands, but how can we really give them the tools to stand out in this crowded marketplace at the moment, to be seen to be doing the right thing, but also to get their jobs noticed? And so we were putting together sales toolkits, editable assets, presentations, ideas for content creation, anything that they needed. We were, for the first time in a while, actually, we were reactive. And we were on hand and we were ready to service, whatever was thrown at us. So yeah, those were our two rules. That was what was decided, and it went really well.
I think, that's what you've just described there is brilliant. Sounds great. And again, we had the last week's webinar with Ashby Jenkins recruitment. We sort of talked about some similar types of activity that they were doing, and they're a much smaller business in the not-for-profit sector. It does kind of seem as though the agencies and businesses that are being most successful, prior to this and during this, are the ones that are taking it almost beyond the typical recruitment. They were very much focused around ethical and diversity. Talked about wanting to be thought leaders in that area. You guys are clearly doing a lot, and not just taking jobs and filling jobs. You're doing a lot more for it. And do you think that this will also act as a real catalyst to move away from what was the classic, recruitment agency sort of model?
Yeah. Every decision we make is based on is it the right thing? Do the right thing. Recruitment's way more than just transactional, finding the right person and putting them in the room. Our consultants have very deep relationships with some of these candidates and clients. They're interested in their well-being. They're sitting there sort of, we talk about building incredible futures. Whilst that might sound a little marketing spiel, and it probably is, it needs to be exciting, it needs to generate a bit of emotion, but the future isn't just a job. And so it's taking the time to understand the challenge or the next step, building that big picture, working with them, helping with them to achieve it. We're in it for the long run. And I think, the recruitment agencies that understand that and take it further than the transactional nature of the job are the ones that will fly. And we're seeing that now time and time again. How we operated throughout the pandemic has allowed us now to hire a load of consultants, to push on when others are probably still recouping and wondering what they're going to do next. So, it's testament to that.
I've always felt that, from my own, from my own experience, I've always felt the recruitment consultant or business that actually takes the time to understand, my business, would be able to find and hire someone for me better than I could, myself, because they will, because they know the business.
Yeah.
And the ones that take the time to understand that can select candidates based on what they know rather than, a spec sheet or a job description. And I've always been surprised that hasn't been more prevalent in the market, because it seems to be a bit of a no-brainer that the closer you are with your client, the better you understand your client, the more likely that client will come back to you, and only you, when you're recruiting next. So, I think that's a better business model, for sure.
I think we take that a little further. So I actually think that's from experience. I think that's happening a lot more. We all know we need to spend time with a client. We need to, you need to get on site. You need to ask more questions. You really need to feel their pain. But what our consultants are doing, in addition to that, is they're on the other side of the fence. So the way that our consultants work is that they specialize. So an example of that would be, you will have someone who only recruits Java in Reading. All right. So that's quite a specialist market. They won't go outside of it. That's what they do. So they make it their job to not only know all of the hiring managers and clients and build up a picture and understand, everything they need to know about them, but they also make it their business to build their own micro community of Java developer candidates. So not only do they know the clients intimately, but they're actually tasked with knowing the candidates as well. So what that means is when they make the match, it is the right match. They can really go deeper than just the transactional element of I've advertised a job and someone's applied for it and I've looked at their CV, they've ticked enough boxes, so let's talk.
Yeah. I think that's very transactional, isn't it?
Mm.
So marketing wise, and we've kind of covered this, but you guys kept on communicating, kept marketing during this. You benefited from some of the decisions that you'd made a couple of years earlier or prior to what you were doing. But there was never a question that marketing could take a back seat, or it was decided that marketing is as important now as it was this time last year, right? Yeah. There was never any question on that.
Well, no, never. No, I mean, we're a marketing-led organization, so we're seen as the drivers, along with sales. And so sales enablement was the key term throughout that. And that wasn't sales enablement, not just from a marketing perspective, but company-wide, commercial, talent. We were all on hand as the sort of the central service departments to ensure that the sales consultants had everything they needed to get the job done, to increase their presence, to do great work. And so no, it was never up for discussion.
So if there are people that are watching this that have been maybe a bit unsure about what to do, they run a marketing business of any size, from one person to 50. What your message to them, and they haven't really known what to do marketing wise, what would you say to them to do straight after this webinar?
That's a big question. I mean, well, look, let's face it, recruitment is one of the most saturated industries out there. I mean, I was looking at the stats the other day, and just the amount of recruitment companies in the country, phenomenal. It's just so competitive, and it doesn't really matter what sector you're in anymore. You're always up against 10, 20, 30 people that can do the job, and that can offer something similar to you. I think what marketing offers is the differentiation. It's the story. So I was talking to one of our consultants yesterday, actually, and he was talking about a sort of a new business proposal that he was putting together. I was sort of explaining to him that what you're saying you can do that you think sounds quite unique it's not that unique. We're all doing this. In recruitment, there are only a finite amount of things you can do, but where you can really make a difference is, of course, the how, but really in the story and in the way in which we're doing things. Now, we have just been through a process. We've defined that. And as a challenger brand, and we see ourselves as one, we really think that we are doing things differently. So I think for anyone that doesn't have marketing within recruitment, your recruiters will always find people. But how you will stand out, how you will differentiate from the crowd, that's why you need marketing, and that's our focus and has been for the last 2 years within Austin Fraser.
I think you make a good point, and the difference, I think, comes down to the why and the purpose. Because, as you said, that proposal where you're saying you're going to do these things, and there's always that problem of the so what. I can get that from 25 other businesses, and actually, just moving beyond recruitment, it's very difficult now to do something unique that someone else can't do, especially tech wise, and more often than not it comes down to the why you're doing that and the purpose behind it, and that's the one thing that you can't easily replicate. If you think, again, it's the whole thing of people by people, and we like to make human connections, and going back to the Java developer, the Java Reading focus consultant, they build those communities, and it's about building that personal connection to everyone. It's not necessarily about the speed of which that hiring manager would get a candidate. It's because it's Bill or Jane or whoever, and they know there is that personal connection there, and it's not that normally comes down to the why am I doing this and the purpose. And I think especially from Austin Fraser, Austin Vita's point of view, that's always been quite clear. The why will help, I think.
One of my big challenges, we've been through a huge why brand exercise, not just the identity, but our values were there, but certainly our vision, our mission, our purpose. One of my biggest challenge was taking, because we give a shit, and turning that into something we could actually use. But really interestingly, time and time again, when we spoke to people internally, when I went up to exec, across to leaders, down to consultants, because we care, because we give a shit, was number one, the thing that came up every single time. It's what drives us. So marketing's role within that was to take that and turn it into a really powerful story. And that does make the difference. If you don't have one, if you don't have a why, if you don't have a story, you will not keep pace. And that's why I think marketing are not only there to create it, but then to deliver it and hold yourselves accountable for it.
What's been the global differences then? Obviously, UK, Germany, US, different countries, different markets, different cultures. How's this translated across those different countries?
I have to say I haven't noticed a huge difference. We didn't just create a vision and mission based on what the key people in the UK thought. This was a global exercise. I'd love to tell you that in Germany this happened versus in the US that, but actually wholesale across the board, we've come together as one company. And I've not really noticed much of a difference. I'd love to give you a better answer than that, but I haven't.
I suppose a lot of it, like these things, always comes down to the internal communication, which I think, from a marketing perspective is also sometimes, can be overlooked because it's not quite as, sometimes maybe not quite as sexy as, doing the stuff that's going out to the wider market, making sure that you're communicating internally, can often be on the bit of a, the second, an afterthought. But, it sounds as though, your internal communication is also, very, very important to keep everybody up to speed with what's going on and communicate, because it's not just, the outside market that's worried about what's happening. It's your own people as well that are, maybe feeling a bit anxious or whatever. And I know you guys have done a lot on the mental health side of things as well, which is great.
I would say, dare I say this, because my job is, I would say, I'm internal and external, but my big push is external at the moment to get us going there. But we are extremely strong internally. Our culture, our values, our behaviours, our internal communications, our talent and people team do a sensational job in ensuring we're all aligned, we're all communicated with. You're right. I mean, even just, I don't know if I can announce this, probably can, but we partnered with a company called FormScore this week. FormScore is a mental health app where our consultants, or anyone within the business will be able to score how they're feeling on any given day, 1 to 10, and based on that score, they will be sort of supported with content and with things that can help them. But also, if they want to, they can make the rest of the company aware of how they're feeling. What we want to do is promote a culture that it's okay to not be okay. Completely fine, and we're with you and we've got you, so just let us know how you're feeling. So we've done stuff like that. Interestingly, you mentioned internal comms. So when the pandemic hit, I'd say one of the biggest mistakes that we made as a marketing department was that we over communicated. So the key message was enable our sales consultants, give them everything they need, make sure that they feel loved, make sure that they've got your support. And so we decided that we'd send a daily email with sort of tools, content, assets, anything that we thought would be good for them to use as talking points to increase their brand awareness. What we actually found was they couldn't read it. They were so busy. They were anxious about what was going on. They didn't know where their next sale was coming from. They were having to completely change the way that they were approaching their day-to-day job. And suddenly marketing is sending them email after email up with all this amazing stuff. What do I do with it? How can I use it? It was too much. So we went through that as a process and learned quite quickly that we needed to, less is more. And we then internally were hit with a new challenge. We were still hiring the odd person, and then suddenly, as the pandemic went on, we really opened our books and knew that we needed to take people into the business. We didn't have an intranet. We didn't have any central way of housing information, and that sounds for a company that's quite forward thinking. It's something that we've just never really thought about. We've always been quite hot on our internal comms. So another initiative that we brought to life in 2 weeks was we built our own intranet. We called it Gwen, got what everyone needs. And that's just so all of our central services, they have pages, they have how-to guides, anything we can think of that makes the world a better place for people who work for Austin Fraser. So we went from we're emailing and we're confusing everyone to actually we've just built our own intranet, and look at how much we've evolved in such a short period of time.
That's cool. It starts from one thing, and then you almost figure out the issue yourself, don't you? You do something, this isn't going to work, and let's try and do something else, rather than blindly, insisting that the consultants will read those emails that you send. And
it was frustrating my team. We're putting days and days worth of work and planning into creating content, into really pushing ourselves to make sure we're delivering for them. And then 2 weeks later on, we're being asked for the same thing. They didn't read the email. Can we have this? We've already done this. It was happening quite a lot. And rather naively, you've got marketeers here saying, well, what am I doing it for? I'm not appreciated. They're not reading it. It's not that they had no chance. Because if you imagine we had marketing emailing every day, but that didn't mean the rest of the emails didn't happen. And they received so much, it became quite overwhelming. So we evolved quite quickly internally, but we've always been really strong with it. So that's why you'll notice that my comment was I didn't really see much change. We're all on the same page. We work very, very hard to make sure that we are.
And I guess also at that time, things were changing daily anyway. So, everyone was getting overload of information from, just from the news in terms of, this lockdown or that lockdown or whatever it was. So you can't really blame them for being almost overwhelmed with everything. Any other kind of things that, if you could rewind that you would change, that you did and that, maybe didn't go so well? Is there anything else?
I wouldn't necessarily say from executionally. Like I don't think any of it. We didn't make many mistakes marketing activity wise because it was always driven by let's do the right thing, less tech recruitment, more how can we help people. And so that sort of guided us to some really good decisions, putting the right people in the room, having the right conversations. I think the two things for us is, that didn't really work well weren't necessarily marketing tactics, but operating reactively. We opened ourselves up to an awful lot, and so as a result my team was swamped, and I had to really reflect back on the fact that I just pounded them with work and they had an awful lot on their plate. And you've got to remember, these guys are going through it as well. Just because they're not consultants doesn't mean they're not suffering. So there was that. And then there was just the over communicating to the business, just a lack of understanding that there are other ways of doing things, and that may actually less is more. But yeah, most of the marketing initiatives that we followed, I think they were really good, and we managed to get a website up and running as well. So it's no mean feat.
Yeah, super. It's a great site. I think one of the things through this that I think most of us have learned is a little bit of humility in terms of it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has been affected one way or another with this. So it's kind of rocked us back to our sort of core human values a little bit, no matter, if you're up here or down here or wherever it is.
Agreed.
So what would you say to smaller businesses that maybe haven't got the some of the resource that you've got? And I know you take on a huge amount yourself anyway, but what advice would you give to them now in terms of how can they market themselves better moving forward? Maybe they've been hibernated, now they've come out, they've watched the webinar and they've gone, do you know what, now's the time.
Yeah.
But they haven't got you mentioned about the sales tools that the consultants can edit and things like that.
Yeah.
Smaller businesses might not have the resource to be able to do that. What would you say to them? What advice could you give to them?
Well, interesting enough, I mean, when we spoke about this before, and you sort of said what advice to smaller agencies that may not have departments. I actually think there's not. I think recruiters are some of the best marketeers going, and I think it's a bit of a myth that they're just salespeople who don't get this stuff. That's wrong. If you think about the very essence of a recruiter, they build communities, they push content, they spend years building personal brands. They're able to communicate on and offline. That's the essence of marketing right there. So I think we realized through the pandemic that our consultants can do so much more than we believed. And that, a small marketing team's number one job really in recruitment is to empower those consultants to make it happen, not do it for them. I think if we think in traditionally in terms of marketing activity, we don't need to do it all, And so, when I talk about the sales tools for our consultants, an example of that is we still use Keynote. So, Keynote being, or PowerPoint, you could do it with either. And Keynote, you're able to do some fantastic things. So what we were doing was not, here are your assets, but here are 3 or 4 templates that you can drop your content into, export as a JPEG or a movie, and away you go. And so as a result, you had a lot of the Austin Fraser video adverts that you see. These consultants are making them. No marketing experience whatsoever. They just needed a bit of education, some simple tools, and actually it goes an awful long way. So I guess my advice to someone that's listening to this and really wants to kick on is twofold. One is you need to look inside yourselves and really try and establish a clear why you're doing things. Why is it that you're heading into the office every morning? What is it that your clients are going to get over and above recruitment? If you can answer that question and live and die by it whenever you are externally talking, posting, and that's a huge step forward. And I think the second is, how can we empower our consultants to do more? The role of a recruitment consultant isn't just picking up the phone and being the middleman, middlewoman. It's not anymore. It's building personal brands. It's making sure that you're seen. It's making sure that you have a positive message when you're online and you're representing your organization. So how can we empower them without breaking the bank. And there are such easy, simple tools out there that you can do it that go a really long way. So they're probably the two bits of advice that I'd give.
I think they're brilliant as well, because you haven't said, right, you need to spend tens of thousands of quid on this marketing or that marketing, or whatever. Two very, very things. Empower the teams. And
well, think about I'll give you an example. The Power of Recruitment consultants. So our new site is launched. Every single recruiter in our business gets their own personal page on the website. And on that page, you'll find their contact information about the company, their live roles, and a way to communicate with them. That's transformational for our business, because what that does is it gives the consultant their own space online. Think about what that's done for our SEO in the last couple of months. I mean, our traffic has improved tenfold, purely because we have 200 consultants all generating traffic and exposure to our website, a website that they previously wouldn't have even discussed. We didn't have a website before. It was that bad. So I guess that's the power of recruitment, is that if you give them the tools, if you give them simple ways of generating awareness and exposure, they'll use it. They're desperate for this stuff. They just don't understand what's possible. So you don't have to break the bank. Keynote's free. A good designer, even an average designer, will be able to get you some really good templates within that. And suddenly you've got a whole host of live job adverts, quotes, whatever floats your boat, and really, really easy to use. So no, I'm not necessarily saying you need big budgets to drive pay-per-click campaigns through to landing pages. It isn't about that. It's about using what you've got. And consultants are fantastic when you empower them to do so.
That's brilliant. And just clocked the time, and we've gone over. I said 40 minutes or whatever, but we'd probably expand to 45, and we're heading into over 46. But I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up, because I think those last two comments, I don't think we'll be able to top that. I think in terms of advice and what we're saying, I think. I hope that this webinar has lived up to the preamble of expectation from Ollie that was there. I don't know if Ollie is still on, but I think what we've covered today has been absolute gold. And I think if you're whatever the size of business you are, even if you're not in recruitment, I think a lot of the stuff that we've covered today and that Richard, that you've kind of shared, and give us your insight, has been, anyone can take and make an impact into their business. So, I didn't ask at the start of the webinar if people wanted to put some questions on the side, but there's been some comments on there, which is great. I haven't seen any questions on there, so I'm going to assume that we've covered absolutely everything that everyone would possibly want to know. But I think I was excited about doing this, and I think for me, I think we've covered some great stuff.
Awesome. Well, look, if anyone wants to reach out to me for a chat, always welcome. I love talking about this stuff. No agenda. If you've got questions, you need some help with something, just reach out. That's what we're about.
That's brilliant. I think we'll get your LinkedIn profile and stuff shared on the side as well, so people I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn. No problem. Awesome. So thank you so much, Richard. I think it's been great. There we go. Look at that, Luis on the line.
He's on it.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's been really, really good. Hope everyone was watching has enjoyed it. And thanks for coming on again. And we will see you again soon. And do feel free to reach out to Richard and just say hi, if nothing else, as he said. So
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Super. Thank you very much.